Arganissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.arganissima.com. Arganissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel. iHealth Radio with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, new topic. Great topic, actually. Great guest. An interesting discussion we're going to have today. And of course, all discussions are interesting, but this one is unique because of the perspective and also the angle that we're going to drive this conversation towards the end of the show. So we all know mental health is important. We talk about it every now and then. We've addressed a few topics. We do even have a stand-in show once a month about mental health with Dr. Heim. But today's mental health is going to be a little different. It's going to get us to areas of the world maybe that may not have access to mental health or the appropriate mental health, services and resources. And so our guest today is going to take us to that journey. But before we go into that, we're going to talk about his journey and, his mental health debate and life and the things that he had to go through as a person before he went and started doing the work that he's doing that we're going to talk about today. So without any more suspense here, I'm going to bring Matthew Dickson with me. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on. This is a real treat.
Yeah, well, listen, it's a very powerful topic, and I think you can never have enough mental health discussion. Health is everything, right? Health is wealth, as a whole, but the mental piece of it is just as equal to the rest of our body. And sometimes if the mental is not right or there's problems there, nothing else is going to matter, right? And society we live in can be very difficult, and it is difficult. And these are part of what we deal with. Everybody at a point in their life has some sort of level of mental distress, and that's different levels. But we all go through anxiety, depression, and just issues. Life happens, right? But your journey was a little bit more extreme than that, and more difficult than that. But what I love about your story, and we'll talk about it soon, is that not only you took care of yourself, but now you're taking care of others. So let's start with your journey, Matthew.
Yeah, so I'm in Eastern Canada. I live right on the Atlantic Ocean, and I had a pretty average childhood. It was fine. I had no real issues with my childhood at all. But when I went off to university, I was taking engineering, and I just didn't feel right. And this would have been the late 80s, early 90s. I didn't know about mental illness. We'd been taught a little bit about mental health in high school, but I didn't know about mental illness and anxiety and depression and antipsychotics, antidepressants. I don't think Prozac had even been invented yet. That was sort of the big buzzword in the world for like a drug for mental illness. Although antidepressants and antipsychotics have been around much longer, for decades before that. But I never heard of any of this stuff. I'd heard of schizophrenia. I don't know if I'd heard of bipolar. Maybe I had. But it just wasn't anything people even uttered, really. And anyway, so I had some symptoms come on, but I could still do stuff. I was still getting mostly A's in engineering. I did a triathlon. I was on the university rowing team. I even bicycled across Canada when I was 20, and that's another story in itself. But at the end of university, when the disease hit hard. I went from muddling through life a little bit to just flat on my back, incapacitated, not knowing whether I was going to live or die from one moment to the next in just a matter of weeks. It transpired like that. And I went to get help. I said, I don't feel good. I was having suicidal thoughts, and I thought, that's not good. You should get that checked out, Matthew. I'd actually been to the university health clinic my very first year of university when some of these symptoms were creeping up. But they sent me for blood work. It came back fine the first time I went, my first year. And they sort of sent me at the door saying, focus on the future. So that's what I did throughout university. I focused on the future. And I didn't really know how I would do that. How do you do that? But yeah, that's how it went. So I told some friends about how I was feeling and whatnot, but no one really knew what to do or knew what to say, or they just said, "Oh, just keep going," and that was it. One said, "Oh, you should go see a mental health counselor. You should go see a psychiatrist. You should see what's wrong. Read these books. Go online. Check about mental health." Well, the internet wasn't there for one thing. The bookstores, I don't know how much they'd have back then in the bookstore. Maybe they had books on them. I never thought to even do that. Anyway, so I got in the mental health system. I got on an antipsychotic. I'm still on it today. And I noticed an improvement in my health every single week for 27 years. I'm 51 now. I went to get help when I was 22 at the end of university. And I went to get counseling for about the first 7 years or so. I tried to live a healthy lifestyle. I mean, other than taking a medication, and by the way, with mental illness, with milder forms of mental illness, you can sometimes get away without having to take medication. That's definitely possible. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and it's more severe mental illness, and they often say you will need medication. So I'm like, it was a ball and chain, to be honest. When I first got that, it's like, oh my gosh, I just biked across Canada, and now I've got this disease, and I have to take a pill. Plus, I was depressed. I had depression and anxiety as well. So it's like, oh gosh, and you couldn't think positively about stuff. So I'm like, oh my gosh, do I have to take a medication now, a pill? It was such a ball and chain for me. I was so down about that. Now I take a pill, and it's like, well, it's so you pop a pill. Isn't that like the ultimate cure for anything? Just pop a pill and you're fine. But I say that in jest. But anyway, it's yeah, it's so anyway, I went to get help, and got help for years. One of the things I did was I read a lot of books. Around the year 2000, I went and started reading books, going online, learning how to get myself better. I was in the self-help section a lot. I eventually gravitated more over to the business and career section because a lot of top CEOs want to learn how to improve their mindset, their confidence. So that's what I was reading, books by Navy SEALs. There's a Mark Devine. He's got a book called Unbeatable Mind. He creates Navy SEALs. He's a Navy SEAL himself, and his book teaches you how they get their confidence, how they get their strong brain power to go over and fight the bad guys. So I was reading books like that, and they helped me immensely. So one thing I try to tell people is that you've got depression, so you've got anxiety or whatever, and yes, you can't be cured just like that. You can't snap your fingers and you're cured, but there are parts of your brain that you can change. There are thought patterns, mindsets, beliefs that we all have, and we can change them. We can grow in confidence. We can, because the old cliche, the old saying, knowing is half the battle. When I was a kid, G.I. Joe, the cartoon would always say that, knowing is half the battle. And I find it so true. Reading all these books, knowing all this stuff. So yes, it didn't make me better. It didn't fix me overnight, but having all that knowledge does help. For example, bullying, verbal abuse. The book Verbal Judo, The Gentle Art of Persuasion by George Thompson. He's a police officer. He teaches people how to deal with people with words, not weapons. And this book it's just wonderful. It's helped me. It's the best people skills book I've ever read. And he says so many people have never heard words of encouragement and praise, and lots of us just get stressed. No one's listening to us, and it just builds up and then it bursts. He says so often police, when they deal with someone, the vast majority of people just need to be listened to. All the calls they go on, they just need someone to listen to them, to vent and get off their chest. He says sometimes you have to use force, but oftentimes it's just let the guy vent. So, but anyway, he says, for example, bullying. There are so many people. He says verbal abuse is rampant in our society. It's rampant. And tone of voice. I know Dwayne Johnson, when the pandemic first hit, he said he was a little shaky. And he said, he was talking about his relationship, maybe with his wife, I think. And he said, it's all the tone of voice. And I try to pay more attention to my tone of voice. Like, what's the tone of voice? Is there anger behind it? Is there a little bit of disgust in your voice or a little bit of hatred when you're talking to somebody? How does that come out? What does that other person think about you? What do they think you think about them? And I really try to be conscious of tone of voice, empathy, having kindness for other people. And Yeah, so it's so I mean, books on bullying, how to deal with a bully, how to deal with someone who's harassing you with verbally. How do you, well, there's books written on them. And so, yes, you may be in a situation like me, being somewhat still sick. I kept improving. I improved weekly for 27 years, so I was always getting better. But having this knowledge in your head, when someone comes up to you and gives you a tone of voice or some cruel words, how do you deal with that? Well, if you've never read any books on that, how would you know what to do? But if you've read the books, yes, it may still be hard for you to go through that. Yes, you may not be able to know what to do or to act on it the right way totally. But having that knowledge, you know more what's going on and you know what the right thing to do is, even though you might not be able to do it. And it helps. It may be still be, you're still sick, the person is still abusing you, it can still affect you, maybe greatly, but it decreases the stress, it decreases what you go through. And that's why, I mean, when you're desperate, I was desperate for help. Please, somebody stop this. Please, somebody stop this pain. Make me better now. Can you fix it now? Anything you can do to stop that, you're desperate for tools. It's like finding a grizzly bear or a cougar or something, and it's on you, and you're down on the ground, pinned to the ground, and your arms are searching around for something, a stick, a stone, something you can bash it over the head to stop it. You're desperate for tools. And I really encourage people to do the nerdy thing and go to the library. Seriously.
You said the L word, man. Library. Wow, think of the past. So it still exists. I mean, they're still good, but I mean, with Google and everything now, it's a little different. You may, yeah. That's funny. It kicked me out. well, so Matthew, you've covered a lot of stuff already in your journey, and I'd like to just dissect a little bit, piece by piece, literally. First things first, schizophrenic diagnosis of schizophrenia. I mean, I think what the common folk will probably refer to as double personality. Is that what we are talking about? Or is that part of
what a lot of people,
yeah,
that's what a lot of people think. There is a thing as double, split, or multiple personality. Those do exist. And I'm no expert. The only official certification I have is an engineering degree. So please say whatever I say, listen to it with a dose of healthy skepticism. From what I've read, split or multiple personality happens because of severe abuse. But it does exist. You'll see people online or on shows that have like 20 different personalities. I was never like, that's not schizophrenia though. It's schizophrenia. Your world sort of is altered somewhat. For me, it just becomes very scary. It's like ever wake up from a nightmare and you're still awake, but you still have that creepy feeling going through your body. And it's like, and for me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to fall asleep. I try to stay awake because I don't want to go back into the nightmare. And that's what my daily life was like. The old cliche, the old saying, living nightmare. That's what it was like. It just very, very scary, very creepy to go out to get up in the morning. It's like watching a horror movie. It's not all sunshine and butterflies. They make the movie so it's scary and creepy with the sound and the lighting and all that sort of stuff, the actors and the voices. And that's what daily life was like. Just very, very scary. And but for the facts of schizophrenia, 1% of the population worldwide has it, male and female, every country around the world. And there's some mystery around it. It is sometimes known to skip generations, but that's not all the time either. I mean, in my family, there's not much mental illness at all, actually, in my family. We did find a relative back in the early 1900s who had schizophrenia. But so with schizophrenia, it's hallucinations. I was in the 25% of people with schizophrenia that don't hallucinate, but for those that do, the 75% that do, those hallucinations can be any of the five senses. They see things, hear things, touch, taste, smell things, and they can be relentlessly tormenting. Like a voice in your head is yelling at you, abusing you from the moment you wake up, all day long. You're tying your shoes, brushing your teeth until you fall asleep at night for years. So, but at the same time, some people have actually beautiful and enjoyable hallucinations. So I'd say for the most part, though, they're very, very difficult to go through. There is some good news on that with hallucinations. They have a thing called avatar therapy. They can take someone who's having hallucinations, You go into a room, there's a computer there, and there's an avatar on the screen. You doctor the avatar up so that it looks like or represents your hallucinations. In another room, there's a therapist. You can't see them, but they will talk to you through the avatar on your screen. And the whole idea of this is that you stand up to your hallucinations. You say, no, you're not going to be in charge of me. I'm the one running the show. The remarkable thing about this is that it doesn't work for everybody. It works partially for some people, but for those who it works for, the hallucinations can be gone in a matter of weeks. Like 1 or 2 sessions a week for 8-10 weeks, rough numbers like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they can get rid of these hallucinations. I mentioned that to somebody nearby where I live, and he said, Matthew, so thank you so much for telling me this. He said he had hallucinations, and he said one day he decided to stand up to them. And it worked. He said his mom was in the next room. She was a bit concerned about him, but when she learned what he was doing, she was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And he said it worked. They diminished slightly. He said, I'd never heard of avatar therapy. Thank you so much for telling me this. I'm going to look into it more. So I just find it remarkable.
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, again, first of all, thank you for breaking that down. Again, the idea of having a voice or feeling things or smelling things or hearing things constantly, I mean, that's creepy for most of the part. But if you live with that, I mean, you would literally have different thoughts because you don't know what's real, what's not real. The world just kind of scrambles up. I mean, I just, not going through it, but just hearing about it from you, I cannot possibly imagine what that was on a day-to-day basis, waking up and just having to deal with it. And then you start to deal with society. That's dealing with it one way. It's one thing, but also applying you and working throughout everything else around your life while you're going through this. You're probably going to alienate a lot of people. People are not going to understand you. It's going to be tough to deal with folks, and they're not going to understand what's going on with you, especially the remote folks. I mean, to your point, I mean, maybe family members, once you're diagnosed and everything, they know what's going on. They're going to be more careful, more caring and stuff like that. But the people that don't know, you go to a store, you go somewhere, they're not going to know. So living in society is going to be very difficult. You talked about bullying. People bully people for no reason. Imagine if they think that you have something different or wrong, right? They'll just take over. I mean, because unfortunately there are people that are just, they love that stuff. It's like they thrive in this. And now with social media, it's even worse. I mean, you got people that just do that, free willy. They just do it.
Yeah.
So it is difficult. Now, 27 years of regular treatment and doing this, ultimately you were able to adjust, and you said it, the books and the reading have to have some guidance and some tools. You actually literally took the tools, and you talked about knowledge. No one is half the game or half the battle. I mean, not knowledge, there is express knowledge is power. Some people may define it not so much it is power, but it leads to power because you're in control. You have more tools, and I mean, you're prepared better. And if you know about things, I mean, there is that movie about knowing. I don't know if you've seen Nicolas Cage.
No.
It's called Knowing, and it's about this lady who has this future. It's kind of sci-fi. It's kind of religious. It's a little weird, but the idea is the idea of knowing what's going to happen. Was scary in that movie, but the idea of knowing anything that can be also good. I mean, the more knowledge, the more you are literally prepared. If you, that's all it is. I mean, you are equipped, to do certain things. Someone who doesn't know, basically they don't have a clue. They cannot do things, right? And so the idea is, what can you do about it is a big difference for someone who has nothing. But you took any other steps that maybe someone else may not have taken, and you've gone through the route of, I guess, psychiatry and pills and things like that. And we'll talk about that as well, because that's important to understand, because to your point, there are things where people may be hesitant to take, pills or medicine. There are some medications that can be not so good in terms of health wise. They may have other side effects and things like that. And it's very difficult when you get into this. No one can actually understand what you've gone through except you or someone has been through the process. And maybe not even your psychiatrist or psychology, professionals. It's one thing to know about things again and experience it yourself. It's just never going to be the same. I mean, we can describe anything we want to someone, but unless you go through the emotion, you and I, we had this brief discussion before. We hear about things, we think it happens to everybody else, but only when it happens to us, then we're like, whoa, Now you start respecting everybody. And this happens in all our lives, and it doesn't have to be in this particular context of schizophrenia, but it's anything in our world. Now, you were young. I mean, that's the other part that's devastating, and it's you're not the only one. I mean, people are going through it today. They've been going through it today, in all these years, and you were just about going out of college and university, graduating. You have a career path ahead of you, and then boom, you just said it. You went to Canada, which would be an interesting story to actually bike in throughout the whole. I hope it was in the summer.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
Okay. But so that's got to be beautiful, by the way. But then you come back and then you have to face the reality of like, wow, there's something wrong. There's something different, and you don't even get to understand it right away, because I'm sure it's probably taken you some time to realize that something was off. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, so I mean, I did go to get help my first year of university, and then when it really got bad, I went again at the end of my fifth year. But I mean, I voluntarily went to get help, but it's I can understand why some people don't want to. It's frightening. It's any big health diagnosis, I think, would be frightening, and it's for some people who don't want to take their medications. There's like I said, some people can get away without medications, but sometimes some people need them. And there's a man, his name's Dr. Javier Amador, and his brother had schizophrenia and did not want to get treatment. So, and he was just not doing well. Without treatment, his brother wasn't doing well. And his brother did not believe he was sick. And on his Dr. Javier's website, leapinstitute.org, he teaches people how to talk to your family member so that they will take medication. There's a certain percentage of people with mental illness who don't believe they're sick, and it's not even just mental illness. It's a thing called anosognosia, and the doctor who discovered it, he had a patient whose arm was paralyzed. The patient did not believe his arm was paralyzed. He couldn't do anything with the arm. He just did not believe it was. He thought he was fine, and the doctor called this anosognosia. And certain percentages of people with mental illness have this, and Dr. Javier's brother had it. So he teaches people through his videos how to talk to your family member to rebuild the relationship with them, because often the relationship gets frayed. You need help? No, I don't. You need help? No, I don't. And it's so he teaches you how to talk to your family member out of respect for them, from their point of view, and rebuild the relationship. And I haven't looked tons into this, but the best I can, from what I understand of how it works, is his brother never, ever believed he was sick, even with all the help from his family. But what happened was he decided to get treatment because he loved his family so much, he did it for them. Even though he didn't think he was sick, he got treatment. That's the best I can understand from it. I need to watch more of it, the videos, but it's he's got a TED Talk. And like I said, I'm not an expert, but I try to tell people about that because it's obviously worked for him and many other people. So, and I haven't watched the videos to see how to talk to your family member like that. I get the gist of it. I've seen some of them, but I wish more people knew that, because how many people do you know who are not doing well and don't want to get treatment? Well, what if you knew how to talk to them the right way?
Well, it's denial, right? We all have this first reaction to everything. You don't want to accept the reality of what's going on, and you basically just deny it, like it doesn't happen. I mean, you don't agree that it's happening to you. Again, it cannot possibly happen to me, and so you get into that mode, like, you shut down. No, this is impossible. I'm not going through this. And unless you accept the reality of things, then you can open up to treatment stuff. But if you're really shut down and you close your mind to it, and you just keep going and fighting the current, and nothing's going to happen, eventually it's going to get to you one way or the other. I mean, you talked about depression and suicidal thoughts. I mean, that's when it gets rough. I mean, even if you close yourself on, and by the way, probably a lot of the problems that happen today with maybe suicidal thoughts and even suicidal, attempts and people that take their lives, is there is a good chance that, this happens and they just basically, they don't tell anyone. And that's most of the cases that we hear about. They're not aware. Your close people don't even know until you're gone. And there's encouragement to talk to people, always find out what's going on, be open, and to your point, just have that discussion. And the art of discussion also needs to be almost orchestrated in a way that is, comfortable, because if you do it the wrong way, they're just going to deny you and reject you as well. So it is not an easy for anyone to be dealing with this individually. And then of course your immediate, entourage, your family support system is important. But if you cannot open up, that's going to be challenging. As a matter of fact, so this last Friday of March, we're going to have a second part of a discussion. We talked about bipolar discussion. We started to discuss it, the last show with Dr. Heim. So we will actually expand on this. So maybe you can join that discussion. And by the way, if you want to join us on the call, I mean, that would be great to have, an actual psychiatrist with us on the discussion there. That would be awesome.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, so I'll send you the link. And so because we left off at the end, it was just not enough time at the end of the show to continue with the question. So we're going to start with it. And the part of the question was about, well, it was more about like multiple personality disorder, but I guess it can feed right into the schizophrenia concept, and from a psychiatrist, a version of it, and maybe that can give more connection to people with the reality of things. But you're right. Now you said you went in the first year to get treatment personally, and then later on you went back again. So does that mean that first opportunity that you had to get treated was helpful for those few years, or was it better, at least to a degree, or ultimately it weaved that away?
The first time, no, not really. They sent me for blood work. It came back fine, and they sort of sent me out the door. I mean, they were nice about it, but yeah. So when the disease hit really, really hard, and I went to get help, my first thought was, why didn't I get help sooner? Well, I did, but I didn't know. No one knew what to do. I didn't know what to do. So, but I thought, imagine if I got this drug into me 5 years earlier. And I don't know if I'd gone to in my first year of university. I don't know if they could have even have diagnosed me with schizophrenia, because my only symptom was I was just low in energy. Maybe they would have said, well, maybe you've got a bit of depression. I don't even know what they'd have done for me back then. I mean that I still stayed that same way through all of university, but yet, I was able to bicycle across Canada and be on the university rowing team and do a triathlon. So I had energy. It's all very confusing, and I find things can get very gray. You start thinking about this, like, well, why did this happen? Why didn't I do this? When things can get severe, it gets very, very gray. And to be honest, well, one of the other symptoms of schizophrenia is disorganized thinking. It's hard to think clearly, but people say with the disease, and I'm the same way, that even though you can't think properly, there's another part of your brain that ticks along just fine. I had thoughts of, okay, well, I'm waking up in the morning. What do I want to do today? Should I go for a walk now or later or this evening? What do I want to eat? What do you want to have for lunch today? Should I go back to school? Should I go visit somebody this afternoon? I'd have all these thoughts that ticked along just fine, but it's kind of like shouting into a tornado. It's all very scary and frightening. And instead of having a nice, calm, reassuring voice in your head, oh, Matthew, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Just go over and have some fun. A voice like that, it's like, come on, try harder. Come on, fight this. No, I don't want to. This is scary. This is difficult. I don't want to go through this. Come on, you got to go. It's like a drill sergeant voice that these two voices in your head, like trying to shout into a tornado. Instead of sitting by the dock on a nice hot summer sunny day with the waves lapping against the shore, and you've got your fishing rod out like Huck Finn, just enjoying life, traveling down the river. It's imagine if Huck Finn had that's what I say. It's like being chased by a heat-seeking tornado. It's just it's anyway.
So the first time you went to them, they did the blood work, and that was it. You just maybe they give you some food, diet, whatever. Maybe you get some vitamins, that kind of thing, and then
they said they said your blood work's fine. The sentence, it's one sentence: focus on the future and good luck. Wow. He was nice about it. But that's
and you remember, you remember it like yesterday. Amazing.
Yeah, that was my advice for 5 years until.
Now, the second time, did you go to an actual psychiatry, a clinic, a mental health clinic, to actually get the full diagnosis?
Well, I phoned a friend and I said, I'm, having suicidal thoughts. He said, we promised me to go up to the University Health Clinic. I said, I promise. And I walked up there. They talked to me for a bit, and then they took me into the the city hospital with a psychiatric ward, and that was my introduction. There's psychiatrists in the psych ward, there's medications, nurses, everything. So that's how it all started. So they got me on a medication after they tried me on 6 or 7 of the 1960s antipsychotics. None of them worked for me. They tried me on one that had just come out that year in 1994. It worked. A couple of weeks later, they said, "Do you notice any difference?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I feel a little bit better." So they said, "Well, stay on it," and I'm still on it today. So it's yeah.
But what was the process to diagnose? I mean, you go to them, you tell them what you feel, and they just give you a prescription. Is there any testing? Do they any assessments? I mean, what was that experience? And again, maybe they have changed by I mean, we're in 2023. 94 may have been, a little so behind, in terms of where we are today in terms of mental health, and a lot of, I think in the last couple of decades, a lot of achievements have been made in the area. But in your case, what was that like the process that you had to go through, at least to identify your status of schizophrenic, and then, what will be the immediate solution, which again, let's get you on some meds and ultimately test out a few of them and then get to this one, and which ultimately did work, because it's still that's the only medicine I'm assuming that you're on to date.
Yeah.
So you were one of the first ones, and it's working, and that's great. And by the way, again, I'm not a big fan of meds, but if you have to take meds, you have to take meds. And some of these things, do, like, even most of the doctors will probably not go first hand, here's a med to cool you down and to calm you down. Only if you're extremely, agitated or whatever, they might do that to just, shut down your symptoms, I guess. But the ideology is that they try to work with you a different way. And then, if there is a need for help for drugs, they do the use of that. So it changes the dynamics. But your process, I mean, was that a couple of days of testing and assessment, or?
So it's over a matter of weeks.
Okay.
And they tried me on 6 or 7 of the older drugs over, so like a week or 2 each. None of them worked. So other than, I mean, psychiatry is the only profession where they don't actually look at the part of the body that's sick. They don't scan your brain. They don't. It's the only profession where they do that.
Is that still current, or that was just then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they don't do that, but some do. There's a doctor, Dr. Daniel Amet. He's in the States. He's a leading brain scientist. He's got tons of books and resources, and he scans your brain. And he's got a book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And he talks about how he breaks the brain up into like 6 or 7 different areas, major areas. He says, and he has them all laid out there for you. He says, look, if you've got too much activity in this part of the brain, you're going to have this mental health problem. If you have too little activity in this part of the brain, you'll have this mental health problem. So they scan the brain to look for either underactivity or overactivity in the major regions of the brain. And he can, just by not even listening to you or looking at you, he can just see a picture of your brain and say, you likely have these problems. So they've done it. They've done it. It's just not out to the masses. He has scanned thousands and thousands and thousands of people's brains. And he said he has trouble finding enough people with healthy brains to make up the statistical parts of the studies. Basically, he's saying a lot of us just don't have healthy brains, even though we may not have.
I tend to agree. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, we live in a society that we all kind of have some sort of an impact by the way we live today. I mean, there's no way. I mean, everything around us, between the environment, the news, the stuff that we get fed from the beginning of, from our birth on, you're exposed to all these elements, and to a degree, and what you're exposed to becomes you, right? It becomes part of your nature. And again, you watch movies, right? It's we've heard the stories about, you talked about horror movies, right? If you watch enough of those, it becomes kind of like, part of you, right? There's that. Your subconscious is almost, conditioned to those things. You see a lot of carnage and blood, you become just bloodthirsty. I mean, there's all these, connotations that we hear about, but we don't kind of pay attention to them. We think we're strong. We think we can overcome these things, but we don't realize the damage that they do to us and how we apply them in, anger, right? Many of us are just angry for no reason. And I mean, we all fall, I guess we all guilty of that. I mean, I can say for myself. I mean, I'm not, innocent to the degree where I can say I cannot get angry. I mean, I control myself to a degree, but at the end of the day, we all get to the moment where your emotions get a little, too much, and you can burst out, right? And that's just the minimum piece of it. But to your point, I mean, I don't know if any of us is going to be like 100%, to the other extent where you can do a good contrast, between, the study. But it nevertheless, we have to try. And I guess that's a pioneer in this area. And hopefully that in a couple more years, this becomes a lot more relevant and more, prevalent and used in the actual treatment of mental health issues. And hopefully, we'll get more. Again, I would love definitely to have you come on, even for a few minutes, just to touch on this and get his official opinion, because I do really believe Dr. Jaime is one of the best in the world. He's from Australia, and he tackles a lot. If you go to our channel, you'll see some of his Dr. Jaime shows, and it's all about people send questions. He answers them based on different topics. But he handles it, he gives his true opinion. Obviously, it's not a consultation to a degree. I mean, those are more advanced things, but he gives the general, gist of how to deal with certain things. So it would be an interesting, discussion to have someone who has been, with the diagnosis and living with it, and the research, and plus the work you do, because he may be also a resource that you can actually add into your mind aid concept that we'll talk about in a minute. So. Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to you. I mean, you went through those first 5 years, and then you got the meds. Now you got the meds, and how was your life though? Past this. I mean, I'm assuming you had to live your life, work, deal with colleagues, with family members. I didn't ask if you have family, kids, or any of that. What was that kind of life like? I mean, to just continue living a normal life. Well, again, normal here is not, no one has a normal life. I mean, that's just, we use the word normal all the time, but what's normal, what's not normal, right? So,
So I don't have a family or kids, but other than, I mean, basically in the hospital, they just look at you to see if what your body language is like and what you say. That's sort of what they have to go on. Blood work, I don't think will tell you much, but it's just how you look, what you say, how you're acting, and what you tell them, how you feel, what you describe to them, what it's like for you, and that's what they have to go on to diagnose you. So my life was, I was in the psych ward, in and out of there 6 or 7 times in 1994. The next 3 years, I was in a group home. I lived there, and after that, I've been living on my own independently. And I wasn't able to work the first few years or so, and then I got a job doing data entry and filing. I don't really like data entry filing. I find it a bit boring, but I thought it was one of the few things I might actually be able to do. It was a stick. It was a stone that I could bash the grizzly bear's head in with. It's a tool. And so I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to lay in bed all day, really. But I said, if I want to fight this, I have to get up. So I went to work and tried to do the best I could. And so this was like the early mid to late 90s, and mental health wasn't talked about much then.
Taboo.
It is now the last 10, 12 years, especially now with COVID, it's been talked about so much more. But in the 90s, I had to whisper the word mental health in public. I couldn't just walk up to someone and start talking about mental health. I mean, you can now. I can meet a total stranger in the grocery store and utter the words mental health out loud. I'm not worried about that. But back
That's
then,
true.
so I'd throw the word mental health into conversation and see how that went. Then I might try depression, see how that went. And if that went okay, then maybe I might throw the S word out there, schizophrenia. What are they going to think of that? So it was generally, I found most people, at least people I met, were fine with it. And I always felt that, like for coworkers, I always felt better if I just got it out of the way quickly. I'd sniff them out first. Could I talk to them about what I'm going through, sort of thing. But I found most of the time I could, and I just found myself getting it out of the way as soon as possible. I didn't have any real strategy, but I just sort of said, you know what, I've got schizophrenia. If I seem a bit different, that's why. So
were people receptive, or do you've experienced some bad reactions?
I was lucky. I don't know about lucky. I don't know what the stats are, but no one really gave me a hard time. Later on in my recovery, some people gave me a hard time, but it wasn't because of my disease, really. or I mean, not focused on like targeting, like harassing me because of my disease, but it was, but I prayed in the early years that no one would give me a hard time because I really didn't know how I'd cope with it. It's tough. I mean, I probably would have coped with it okay, but it's very scary. It's when I mean when they told me what I had, schizophrenia, the psychiatrist said, Matthew, we've been talking with the team and we think you have schizophrenia. So I asked a nurse in the hospital in the psych ward, how long might it take before I get better? And she said, sometimes it takes a couple of years before people feel like themselves again. I don't know where she got that number. A couple of years, 2 years? Did she pull it out of a hat?
Well,
I don't know.
I think now a couple of years has been just to a general term of a few
Something
years.
Something to say to this poor guy in the psych ward just diagnosed.
I mean, normally a
And
couple should be two, but it hasn't been that way.
well, here's the thing. I thought, well, 2 years. I just sort of took that as a gospel truth sort of thing. Like 2 years, can I last that long with this pain? I didn't know. I could barely hold on for the next 2 minutes. And anyway, I sat there and I thought, well, do I fight this or do I just say bye to the world? And a few seconds went by and I said, you know what? I'm going to fight this. I'd weighed no pros and cons. I just said, I'm going to fight this. I don't know why I came up with that decision. No idea. I just said, I'm going to fight this. And then I thought, well, okay, you've decided that. How are you going to do it? But and a few seconds went by, weighed no pros and cons, weighed no tactics or strategies. The next thing I thought was, I'm going to put my life on hold. I accept the fact that I will do nothing that I enjoy for the next 2 years. If, when that 2 years comes up and I'm better, I will pick my life up from where I left off and move on with my life. And I said, okay, now that you've decided that, that's your strategy. You're going to fight. That's your strategy. How are you going to do this? When are you going to start? Well, Matthew, time's ticking. Well, I better start now. What's the first thing I can do? Well, I was in the psych ward. I thought maybe I can go into the TV room and watch an episode of Friends. Maybe Friends. I think that's the first year Friends came out in 1994. And so I said, okay. So I stood up and I started walking across the floor, across the room, over to the TV room. And it was a feeling of purposefulness of, do you know the saying, running the gauntlet? In the old days, there was if you were a warrior, like if people were shooting at you from the sides, you just head down straight ahead and hope to God no one hit you with arrows or sword, whatever they're throwing at you. Just head down.
Be faster.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was sort of that feeling of me walking across the room. Just it was very just head down, and I'm doing this forceful walk, like I'm going through all this, and that's how it started. That was the start of my journey.
But again, just here in 2 years, a couple of years, and you were having difficulty with few hours, an hour to an hour, day to day, but you made the right decision. Ultimately, to your point, there was two choices to be made, and you picked the right one, and you did it. And by the way, it was meant for a reason, and the reason is what got you to today. And we're going to talk about that literally in a couple of seconds here. And one question that comes to mind is that, we've talked about other people's relationships and stuff like what about your family in terms of going through this process? Was there any help, any support system from them? I mean, I'm assuming that they were there to guide you through this, and maybe I'm wrong. What was that kind? Because that is not easy for your loved ones or your family, your parents. I mean, you were young. That's got to be also challenging for them. How was that transition, and to accept the fact, because it is also difficult on your immediate family to admit or accept maybe some of this. Like you said, mental health was like, very taboo, very touchy. I mean, imagine the neighborhood and everybody, family. Oh my God, my son is diagnosed. Oh my, and it gets crazy, right? Literally, I mean, no pun intended for the word here, but that's how it will go. Like, people will just go nuts about the idea, and they'll be almost like, crossed out. This is the family that we don't want to interact with. It's just sad that that's how people had it. And, even to date, maybe there are still people that think that way. And as we transit to the discussion of the worldwide, mental health, and that maybe still be part of today's society somewhere. What was that experience? And then we'll transit into, what you do today to give back?
Yeah. So my friends and family were supportive. It's and you're right, it's tough. It's definitely tough for me. It's tough for them too. And you feel very helpless. I felt very helpless. I'm sure my friends and family felt very helpless too. Like, I walk into a room, I sit down, I'm not doing well. How's Matthew doing? There's all this concern about me. How's Matthew doing? And part of me liked that I had people who could be concerned about me, because not everybody does. Some people are abandoned. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want everyone concerned about me. I just want to get up and live my normal life free, to do what I want and just to have fun and enjoy life, and not everyone just staring at me like, what do we do about Matthew? What do we do? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I don't know what to do. I'm sitting here, maybe we could watch a TV show. Maybe we could go for a walk, have a bite to eat, whatever. It's I have been doing some Zooms recently with family members of people with schizophrenia in Canada here in some places, and I'm taken right back into their kitchen, their living room, and they have a family member who's not doing well with schizophrenia, and it just takes me back to those days of the desperation, the helplessness. Like, what do we do? What do we do? Is there anything? What can we do? Is there anything? And so I was thankful for the people in my life. At the same time, I wished they back then knew more of what to do. I mean, with the resources we have now, and you're right, like the last 20 years with research into the brain, people talking about it so much more now. It's I'm not saying people going through mental illness, it's a walk in the park now by any means. I'm sure there's still the terror and the desperation and the unknowing and the helplessness, but there's just a lot more tools now, and there's more just acceptance of it, and that's got to help. That has to help. So
yeah. Matthew, you went through your journey. You really pushed through it, and you've actually prevailed. And you've turned a whole new key. You've started helping people, which again, not everybody takes that route, whereby they went through something, a bad experience in life, and they went through it with really strength and successfully, and now they want to make sure that other people don't go through the same journey or the same difficulties that you had gone through. But you chose to do that, to be a resource to help, and you decided to create your own resource platform, MindAid, but with a spin to focus on people in underdeveloped countries or war, places in the world. And there's no lack. There's always a war somewhere, and there's always going to be devastation somewhere. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. But also, there's still countries that don't have appropriate healthcare, let alone mental health care. I mean, and then there's also cultures, religion, aspects around the world that may not accept, the discussion about maybe mental health, or even accept it in the cultural realm. I mean, you do not talk to this family because they have someone that is completely, off, whatever the case, how they would define it. But that's reality today. And we tend to always kind of focus on the Western piece of it, in the US, Canada, maybe Europe. But the rest of the world may not be up there. In some parts of the world, yes. I mean, developed countries versus, undeveloped would be two different places. But the idea that you took the initiative to create a resource for people and promoting different organizations that do help and take some resources and help across the world to those needy, individuals around the world where the care is not available. To your point, maybe not even there's no mental wards or psych, wards or any mental health clinics. Maybe there's one in the whole country with maybe one doctor. Is it enough? And we just talked about how this world is today, that we all kind of have some level of distress. You would think that, that's going to be overwhelming from one particular provider or a couple providers. But so what got you into the concept? First of all, I commend, your, initiative, and I really kudos to you and congrats for giving back. And even going through these, like you said, you're doing Zoom, you go into some people's homes and help them and guide them, because you can relate to this whole, experience and journey, and you can give some guidance. Because there's, we have a saying in my culture, we have a saying, don't ask, the doctor, ask maybe I make it wrong, but the idea is that you ask someone with experience, you probably get more. I think that's the gist of the translation will probably be butchered, but the idea is that when you ask someone who has been through the actual trenches, it's never the same, because that's where you get the real motor, the real thing. Because it's one thing to read about things and one is to experience it. Now you can talk based on your own experience. And of course it may be different, because not all the experiences are the same, but you can relate to the best compared to the parents or maybe family members, because they have no clue what that person is going through, but you did. But now you took care, of this opportunity and started an initiative called MindAid. It is your website. It is a resource. So let's talk about that and why specifically undeveloped countries.
Yeah, so a lady saw me at my worst in 1994. She said, I looked like I was walking through a world of flying glass. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Thanks for noticing, because that's exactly how I felt. Mm-hmm. And my heart went out to people who have mental illness and extreme poverty and war. And like, how do they do that? I went through treated mental illness in a sleepy part of Canada, and I felt like I was living in a war zone. I don't know why, but I never went looking for content online on mental health in developing countries. I have no idea why. But in 2017, TED Talk burbled up into my Google feed, and it was by Vikram Patel. And he was one of the first people to give basic mental health care to people in developing countries. These models now are low cost, proven effective, and scalable. And the World Health Organization is trying to figure out the best way to roll them out to the masses. In the meantime, there's groups helping using these models of basic mental health care. What they do is they go into a community and they teach some of the people there how to give these models of basic mental health care to their own community members. They handpick certain people who might have some leadership skills or some maternal health skills, some sort of thing, and they teach them these methods. And some of them don't use medication, some do. Fine Mind and Strong Minds, they work in Africa. Fine Mind works in Uganda, and they don't use medications, but others do. And the cause is vastly under-resourced. Some countries have only one psychiatrist per million people. Mm-hmm. Over 270 million people in developing countries have no mental health care, and the experts say that number might be low. It might be higher than that even. What's really bad, some people with mental illness are actually kept in chains in some countries. They estimate hundreds of thousands of people in 60 countries. They're tied to a bed, tied to a tree. Their feet in chains, shackles. Sometimes they have their foot through a big heavy log where they can't move away, can't walk, tied up in the shed. And not just with they have untreated mental illness, tied up, extreme poverty, war. I'm like, it's just horrific what some people have to go through. That said, there's a man, Shekhar Saxena, he's from Harvard. He spoke at the UN. He said every country, when it comes to mental health care, is a developing country. I still would rather be in Canada for mental health care than some places in Africa. But basically what he's saying is we all have mental health care systems that are classified as developing countries. There's a man in Nova Scotia, Canada, his area of Nova Scotia. He dramatically improved the mental health and addiction system there. He's got a book. His name's Todd Leader. His book's called It's Not About Us. And he teaches the rest of Canada how to do what he did. And he got wait times down from 5 to 8 months down to 3 weeks, 1 week or less. He said, but he did all this by, plus many other changes. He did all this by making the system client-centered, not bureaucracy and paperwork-centered. When someone walks into a room, walks into a clinic, how long do they sit there? How many forms do you get them to fill out? How many rooms do you have them? How many waiting rooms do you put them through before you finally see them? Or do you see them within a matter of seconds when they walk in the door? How can we help you? What's wrong? What can we do? When you have a phone answering machine, if you're a mental health organization, do you say, if this is a crisis, please call this number, 911 or 988, I guess in the States too, now. And
suicide line.
Do you put that at the end of your message, like a lot of them do? Or do you put that at the very beginning? It's things like that make a system more client-centered. The book's written for Canada, but and I'm no expert, but I would assume that many other countries could do the same thing. Like developed countries could learn a lot by making these systems client-centered. He was successful, so it's really try to tell people about that book. But I made so I started researching the cause after I found Vikram Patel's TED Talk. And I thought, well, maybe, so, and I found a lot of the information was scattered across the web. And I thought, well, wait a minute, what if I put this all on one site to make it easier for people to find? So my website, MindAid, is a simple curation site. I don't go into a great depth in any one topic, but I will send you off in a lot of different directions on how to help people with mental illness in developing countries. I've never been outside North America. I've mostly just been in Canada, a little bit in the States in my life. Maybe someday I might have the confidence, the mental health to travel to some developing countries. I've been invited to one country already to see the work there by FindMind in Uganda, and I'm like, well, maybe I don't know. It's a challenge for me to travel out to Vancouver by plane. I've done that 4 times throughout my recovery, and it was a challenge each time just to go to Vancouver. I mean, Vancouver's far, but it was still. I'm not going to, anyway, things were so difficult for me. I really had to watch what I did. But anyway, my website, I made that in 2018. It's starting to gain some traction. It is actually the world's first website with all the groups helping the cause of mental illness in developing countries all on one site. And that's starting to get, I was in LA Weekly recently with 4 million readers. Very happy about that. And I'm getting on some podcasts like yours, plus others. I'm enjoying speaking about it, being up on stage and screen, and I'm wanting to speak more about it. It's the more people who know about this. I mean, if there is ever a time that mental illness in developing countries could become a thing, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, could you talk about mental health? No, not really. Well, you can't talk about it now. So the great thing about it is that for decades, we've been giving money, helping people in developing countries, clean water, building schools, mosquito bed nets, all sorts of things, buying goats. We all get that. We get that. That is so common. Now, all I'm saying is now that we're talking about mental health, especially with COVID, bringing it wide out into the open, can we bring in this other cause of mental health that affects so many people, hundreds of millions? Can we throw this in there? It is vastly under-resourced, but there's ways to help. They're low cost, proven effective, scalable, these models of basic mental health care. Can we get more eyeballs on this? Can we get more dollars flowing? Can we get more feet on the ground, helping people get their mental health back? If you're living in extreme poverty and you can't get out of bed, you can't feed your family, that's a death sentence for your family. Yeah. So some of these groups, nonprofits these days, you can donate as little as $3 a month to some of them, $5 a month, $10 a month. $3 a month, that's a coffee once a month, 10 cents a day.
Coffee is more expensive these days.
Okay.
You go to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, I think you're looking at maybe $3.99, just a small thing. So yeah, coffee is expensive. And by the way, worldwide, it's the same price. It doesn't matter where you are. But you're right. I mean, it shouldn't cost a lot. And to your point, but the question that comes to mind, first of all, a great job, dude, and keep up the great work. Keep coming on these shows. I'll do a blast of this, and hopefully more people can hear about it. This is the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio. It is worldwide, so people will eventually get to this discussion, and we'll do some promotion around it. But for the work that you do, the more the merrier. I think the site or the link that you have, the website, should be exposed to others. But there's always skeptics out there. Some people will probably question, like, what are those companies? Where's the money going? What would you tell them? I mean, I'm assuming that these are all vetted companies and I guess not for profits that are out there. What would you say, because that will be a first question. Like, as soon as you start talking about donation and about resources and worldwide, like, I don't know who I'm going to give my money to. People, it's just the way it is, right? So what would you say to people?
Well, there's some big names behind this. One of the group's partners in health, Bill Clinton, and the band Arcade Fire endorsed them. Ashley Judd, the actress and singer, she's narrated a promo video for Strong Minds. They work in Africa, helping women with depression. Forrest Whitaker, the Star Wars actor, his foundation is working with FindMind in Uganda. And Robin Williams' son, Zak Williams, as well as Allison Janney, the Hollywood actress, and Tim Shriver, founder of the Special Olympics. Those three, and others, they have a platform, hashtag Break the Chains, and you can sign a pledge there to help unchain people with mental illness. So there are some big names behind this. The big groups like UNICEF, World Vision, Oxfam, they are working to help. Doctors Without Borders, they do work helping people with mental illness, and you can donate to them. There are other smaller groups, like some I just mentioned, like Partners in Health, Fine Minds, Strong Minds, who have those big endorsements. They're smaller nonprofits, but they can scale. Given the funding, they can scale. That's what they want to do, is scale up. And it's they're not as well known, but the more people know about this, the more they can become household names.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be Try Global? They use trauma recovery yoga. They're working in Iraq, and they want to work in Ukraine later this year. They've got a fundraiser that they're looking for money for, but they use trauma recovery yoga to help people like in war right now, refugees and people with PTSD, and they're getting good results. What if that was a household name? How many people are doing that? It's I just want more eyeballs on this. These groups, these nonprofits, these smaller ones are on social media. They post regularly. Get to know them, follow them, subscribe to them, share their posts, get people talking about this. I think, and I'm no expert, but I'm taking a cue from Catherine Hayhoe. She's an environmental advocate, and she says the best thing to do about the environment is simply talk about it, to have conversations about it, get more people talking and taking action, even before like putting up solar panels and buying EVs. I'm taking a cue from her, and I don't know if this is based in truth or fact at all, but I'm saying the biggest thing we can do for mental health in developing countries is talk about, have conversations. The more people who know about it right now can help. How many people think about this? How many people think about someone in a developing country who has OCD or bipolar? Who's helping them? They're sitting there right now. There's somebody sitting there with bipolar right now, untreated, desperate for help, like I was. Desperate. His family's around there. How do we help this person? There's ways to help. They figured it out.
You did, and by the way, I mean, you mentioned some powerful names, and you said it best. I mean, do the research, follow them and stuff. You're not asking just people to just jump in the water here. You can do.
Well, that's the other thing too. Sorry, that's the other thing too. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
I encourage people to before anybody makes a donation to any nonprofit, no matter what it is, I really encourage people to do their due diligence to make sure you're happy with your donation. So spend some time, go on their websites, go on their, look at their financials, follow them, see more what they're about, find social proof. And I mean, like I said, I'm no expert. In the back recesses of my mind, I'm thinking, well, Matthew, you found these groups online. How do you know? You haven't been there and talked to them. I have talked to them online and on Zoom. I've reached out to almost all of them. And they've been appreciative of what I'm doing, and but
you're a voice. You're a voice that promotes, the solution to helping people, just like you were seeking help, and maybe you were able to get it in the Western world, but undeveloped countries may not have access to your point. It may be one doctor to 1,000,000 plus, and it's not even remotely acceptable, but.
Yeah, I'm not a charity rating or evaluation agency, and that's what I want to get. Find more people who are better at this than I am. I'm not even good at that. I don't know how people do that. But to have someone, I just want more officialness about my website, and I'm working on that. I'm trying to find more people to, because I'm new to this. I'm a newbie. That's one thing I encourage people to do. Is if you want to help somebody in your life. So many of us don't go after our dreams. Things we want to do, we don't go after. We watch another show on Netflix, we eat more junk food, and call it a day. We live on the couch. But if people went after their dreams more, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm no expert. I'm just some guy who grew up in a small town who stumbled upon this cause and is trying to help. You can help. There's so many causes out there needing help. So many people need feet on the ground. And I simply was reading books, learning how to do this. I was reading books on how to public speak, how to advocate, how to make a website, do social media, fundraise, start a nonprofit. There are courses, there are books on how to start a nonprofit. I've been reading those. Mm-hmm. And I really encourage people to just start doing something. Take one small step. You may not, that small step will give you a bit of confidence. Take another small step. That'll give you more confidence. Don't wait for the confidence to take action. the actions will slowly give you the confidence over time, like building a brick wall or a brick house. You may not start off very confident, but every phone call you make, every book you read, every post you make, every whatever, all these things you can do. And a lot of these, I mean, this isn't E equals MC squared stuff. I mean, how to start a nonprofit is not quantum physics. You can read a book, then they can explain it to you fairly easily. It's work, but it's all one small step, one small thing at a time. And that's what I'm growing, I'm learning, I want to get better at this, and I want to be totally transparent and honest with people and say, look, I don't know everything about this. I've made a website. I'm not an official anything. I don't even have like a business registration number, whatever it is. And I'm not accepting money, but I'm getting the word out, and that's what I'm trying to tell people is you don't need a degree.
You're an advocate.
You to have an effect in the world, you don't need a degree. You don't need to have 17 letters after your name. Just start. And with the internet, and you can have a website up for free in minutes, or a blog up for free in minutes. You can have social media up for free in minutes. You can have YouTube up for free in minutes. Start talking about this. Find a cause. Maybe it's not your ultimate cause. Maybe a year or two down the road, you say, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this. But all that knowledge you got of getting on YouTube and speaking about a cause, meeting with people, that's all experience. You'll learn a lot from that. Simply start trying to help other people. There's a TED Talk by Martin Seligman, and he said, it's called The New Era of Positive Psychology. And he said, it's proven now, psychologists have proven, the best predictor of long-term life satisfaction is helping other people, or the animals, or the environment, helping a cause, giving back, philanthropy. That's the best predictor of long-term life satisfaction. And you asked why I started this. That's one of the reasons I started this, was because I'm trying to help myself. What's one of the best ways to help myself? Helping other people. There's an episode, sorry to mention the show Friends again. There's an episode of Friends where Phoebe and Joey were having a debate about, is there really such a thing as a selfless good deed? Because they said, one of them, they were saying every good deed was not just out to make you feel better. So I don't know. I'm starting this. I say I've found my life's passion with helping people with mental illness in developing countries. I'm pretty sure that's what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. I don't know for sure if what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Maybe I'm supposed to be helping manta rays out in the ocean, conserving them. I don't know. I tried this. I started this. It's working. I enjoy it. There's probably a million things I could do today that would make me happy, and probably 10 million that would make me unhappy. But I'm doing this. It's working. I'll keep going with it. It's my biggest idea. I don't know. Am I passionate about it? People say I sound very passionate about it. I 100% don't know if it is my passion. I don't know. It's an interest. There's an article online about how passion is overrated. Do things that interest you. You don't have to be this cheerleader, loudspeaker, megaphone, go, go, go person all the time to get stuff done. Jane Goodall, the environmental and chimpanzee advocate, she is soft-spoken. She's quiet. She speaks very quietly. She is not a in-your-face Tony Robbins, jump up and down, let's go do stuff. She's a very quiet, let's go do stuff. And it works. If you're an introvert, you can still get stuff done. You don't have to, a lot of speaking is simply speaking to one person. If you're up on a stage speaking to thousands of people, sure, a lot of people may be more louder, extroverted. Jane Goodall isn't. She's still very quiet. All you're ever doing is talking to one person. And for people starting out, I can say from experience with me getting onto podcasts in the last few months, talking to a podcaster like you is just a one-on-one conversation. I don't feel like there's thousands of people listening right now, even though there will be.
And they are.
And I just feel like it's conversation.
But
so confidence is. So I'm doing things now after 5 years of advocacy work that I could not do in my first year. But I slowly grew into that. Phone conversation, email, post, just slowly. And your confidence grows. And that's what I encourage people to do. Anyway, that's a tangent. But I'm not a charity rating or evaluation agency. Hopefully, somewhere down the road, my website will be more official. And and be more just.
A re-
And I've got to learn how to do that. So
and you are a resource. And by the way, remember what I said? When you made that decision in that mental health clinic that you're gonna beat this and you're gonna walk through that TV, whatever. Watch the first episode of Friends. Well, you were meant to do this. And I do believe personally that everything happens for a reason, and we don't know what our legacy is going to be on this planet, and we all have a call, and this was your call, and you know what, you find yourself doing something, and we all have, at least I believe in that personally. Same thing when I started my radio and media company. It was just the idea that I wanted just to give a mission to help and educate, enlighten, and inspire and motivate people. That was it. And how I'm going to do it? Well, I'm going to start. And it was just the same idea. Like, I'm going to start with one show. It was just me, no guest. And for a few months, that was the case. But, it just evolved slowly but surely. But I know one thing, that I want this and I want to continue doing this. And that's it. Nothing's going to stop me, and I will continue doing it because I believe in it. And the reason and what motivates me the most is you. Literally you and my guests, because every episode, every show, every guest that comes on has a story, has a mission, has a passion, and is a resource for the world out there. And I know that someone somewhere, sometime will benefit from this, regardless. Today, tomorrow, next year, someone's going to get to this and they're going to, wow, I hope I learned about this before. The idea is just to get it to as many people as possible, and that's what we're working on. But it's the same concept. We're in the same work. We just have different angles. I create a platform for resources such as yourself, but the idea is exactly the same. You believe in this because you don't want, and by the way, we all have gone through our lives and we wish that we had help, we had things done. And if we are really, when you reflect on life sometimes, and you say, by the way, we're 51, both of us. So we're in that age where we really, that if we get lucky to have another 50, but the chances are maybe not. And even if you did, how well you're going to live, past a certain age. So it's time to give back. You've gone enough in life, and it is a beautiful thing to do, because we don't know, but at least when we're not in this world, this continues. People will still hear about this. Someone will be helped. So your seeds that you planted today, they're going to be with fruits. Somebody's going to enjoy them, and that's good enough. And for me, at least knowing that as a fact, I'm happy with it. So what you're doing is really that, and you're taking it on the road. Like, you're right. I mean, in Canada, in the States, we have a decent healthcare system, because that's still a tough discussion we can have, about how well they are and stuff. And mental health is not the greatest, even to your point, even in the States or Canada, and probably not even around the most advanced countries. And when you're thinking about third world countries, you're thinking about war countries, it's definitely devastating. Even in modern countries or Western countries and that are developed, if something, God forbid, happens, we have a tragedy, we have, we have a storm, like, we had some hurricanes and tornadoes, whatever, devastating areas, it affects mental health first thing, and when you get afflicted with financial, the first thing that goes to your mental health. That's almost a clear, you lose your job. Oh my God, you start losing it. You're depressed, your anxiety, all this stuff happens. And that's a simple example. So we all experience it to a degree or another, but having the resources to access, whether local or overseas, I come from overseas, and I have family overseas, and I can tell you overseas is not the same. The world is not as we think. There's poverty, there's limitation of resources. As best as those countries can do, they're still not where they need to be, right? And so resources and companies that are reputable, that are able to do these work and a terrible help, and assistance in those places is a good thing. What you did is really create a resource platform that has a focus on mental health, and for certain countries in the world that actually need it the most. Nothing wrong with that. Like you said, I love what you said about someone should do the due diligence, check them out and follow them, make sure this is the right place, and then you're going to invest in your own legacy by helping someone. And that's all there is. And again, there is always a beauty in helping people. I do believe in that. There's a sense that is unique when you give, as opposed to take. Some people love to take, but there is no real satisfaction except when you give. Because you can have everything and it's going to become nothing. Because once you have something, you can dream of anything big, and once you have it, you use it for a couple of days. Okay, cool. I have it. Yeah, that's how we all do, right? You dream of something, you do it, like, okay, now I have it. So what's the big deal? Work, same thing. Doesn't matter, money, but the satisfaction that we have when we give is just, there's nothing like it. Period and out. And we can enjoy everything in our lives, but when you know that somebody's going to benefit, there is just a level of feeling that is unique about it. And the more we do it, the more you just want more of it. It's just literally, it's a drug, but you have to get into it to understand what it means. And most people may not get to that point. And when they do, like, wow, this is cool, satisfying. And it means something, at least you know that you have value in this life, and you give back to the world. We all take from the world all our lives. It's okay to give something back to them. And sometimes it's just putting one-on-one together, resources together. It's not a big deal. And yes, it's got to take time. I mean, you're going out talking and stuff. It's your time, and time is money. Time is value, but this value equates the help that you're giving to people. And that in itself, something that is, more than money. I think there's no price to it. It's priceless. And so again, you're doing it, continue doing it. Love the work. Now I will have the actual link of your website into the description show, so people can actually, touch it, go through it, also connect directly with the organizations. Also on my website, you will have a picture there. If they click on it, it will go right to the site as well. So if people want to just check, and we'll have this posted all over the world. So it will be on the radio, the podcast, the channels, all the visual media. So again, people will have access to it. Hopefully, those that are in need of it can hear it and maybe can reach out, and even people around the world, they might be able to actually access the website and know the resources and maybe reach out directly to them. See, that's the other thing. As simple as that, it can help, but if you don't know about the site, nobody knows about it, they're not going to know about it. And again, even if I do the search and I do Monade, I mean, I'm not going to think about it that way, I'm mental health help, whatever. It's going to be maybe a whole bunch of stuff in Google that's going to come up. I don't know. But knowing where to look and really going direct to the source, that's important. And you're doing that. So again, I congratulate you for the work and for what you've done so far. And you know what? After the pandemic, it is clear that this mental health is just more relevant than ever. And people are aware of it now, because to your point, it affected everybody. It's not just one pocket or the other. Everybody's gone through it, and it got worse for everyone. Only the few can, really survive this in 100%, with no impact. But most of us had some sort of impact. Just being locked down alone is got a big psyche, impact in there. So everyone has a need for it. It's just that some people don't have the access to the resources which you do bring. So again, thank you so much for that. I think you've given a lot, and you continue doing this. And I just will support your mission here, and you're welcome to come back anytime and talk more about this. Any last advice you want to give to people, our audiences right now?
So a lot of what I've talked about today is on my website under, I've got a link there called My Best Mental Health Tips, and it's in the About section of MindAid. And I really encourage people to go there. I've got, those are my best books, articles, resources, YouTube channels that I found that have helped me. And if you want to get in my head quickly, pick my brain quickly, that's one of the best ways to do that. These are books and things I've talked to people about for years, and things that have helped me so much. I really encourage people to go check that out for their own mental health or somebody they know. And yeah, it's I'm also looking for other podcasts to be on. People can hire me to speak at their events. I want to be up on stage and screen. If you can have any part of that and getting me up in front of people to spread the message about for people listening, if you want to be any part of that, please reach out to me. I will happily speak where I can.
Listen, that's terrific.
I'm on social media. All my links. Sorry,
no, that's
all my links to social media are on the website. So yeah.
You listen. I mean, you're willing, and not everybody is. So again, thank you again for willing and sharing. And everybody wants to share all their tricks, and you're like an open book right now about all those tricks. So people should take whatever they can, and it's available. So yeah, folks, listen. Got Matthew here, plenty of resources for you. If you dabble with the mental health, or you know someone that needs the help, or organizations that need the help, do check in, and nothing to lose. Click in there, see what's worth, and share away. And you can help people, and those people may help other people, and so on and so forth. And therefore, a lot of people will be able to live a better life. And you never know who you help. Maybe not even, you talked about suicide earlier, right? You don't know who could be potentially thinking and contemplating that, and because of watching or listening or getting into one of those resources, their life can change, and maybe they'll be the next person that's going to change the world. We don't know, but hope for the best, and that's all, and do your best as well, and that's all there is. Well, so Matthew, thank you for being with us for a great show, and for sharing your life and your resources and the work you do. And folks, I hope you enjoyed today's show, and that you've gotten a lot of good information and resources that you can live with and share to others, and just enjoy. That being said, I'm Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic. Bye for now.